I never hung my name on a door. I don't put it on plaques or program booklets, and I've never once corrected a neighbor who called me ma'am, as if I were just one more body in a city of raincoats. That's fine with me. Real value doesn't announce itself. It keeps its head down, it shows up, it pays its bills, it listens. On a gray Tuesday in Seattle, I come home from work with a paper bag of groceries, apples, oatmeal, 2 chicken thighs, things that stretch, and find a bright white envelope taped to my door. My apartment is 5B in a 1929 brick building on a corner where the maples dump leaves that smell like pennies and tea. The envelope says "Important Notice" in block letters, as if people in old buildings don't understand gentle words. I take it down. I read it under the hallway light while my neighbor Miguel wrestles a stroller into the elevator and his 5-year-old daughter Alma waves a pink mitten at me. The letter uses words like renovation, necessary upgrades, market alignment, and vacate. It pretends to be sorry. It pretends that this is about safety and forward progress, not about someone squeezing an extra digit onto a spreadsheet. Miguel looks at my face and his easy smile drifts. "You got one too?" "I did," I say. "We'll figure it out," he says too quickly, because good men say what they think kind people want to hear. We always do. Do we? I fold the notice into my canvas tote with the apples. Let's see what we're made of. He nods like a soldier with no ammunition and pushes the stroller into the elevator. The doors close. I unlock my door, set my groceries down, and stand with my back to the wood as the quiet hush of my apartment coils around me. It's a good quiet, the kind that hums instead of screams, the kind you build like a quilt, piece by slow piece. Outside, rain hisses against the old sash windows. Inside, I can hear the soft and faithful breath of the small refrigerator and the upstairs neighbor's radio turned down to a whisper. That radio is always jazz, sometimes Ellington, sometimes someone I don't recognize, and the trumpet feels like the polite version of crying. I boil water for tea. I keep the notice on the counter where I can watch it. I've seen this sort of letter before in other buildings, other years. I know the posture, the vocabulary, the perfume. I know how people with one hand in a filing cabinet and the other in a wallet talk themselves into believing they are angels. It's busy season for angels. My daughter, Lena, calls right then. The moment the kettle whistles, the phone lights up with her name. That's Lena for you. She has a sixth sense for the precise second a mother is about to sit. "Hi, sweetheart," I say. "Mom," she says, quick and bright as a morning news anchor. "Are you free this Friday?" Andrew's firm is hosting a reception at the Sky Mercer, and he really wants you there. You'd love it. There's a view of the whole city, the Sky Mercer, I say, smiling despite myself. So you want me to stand still in a glass box 40 floors up and pretend I have nothing else to do? "Mom," she says, which means, please don't be you for 20 minutes. It's important to Andrew. They're presenting a new redevelopment portfolio. It's kind of a big deal. Could you come? She doesn't say, wear something decent, but I hear it anyway and forgive her. Of course I'll come, I say. I'd never pass up a chance to watch people drink tiny bubbles and talk about vision. Lena laughs because she loves me and because she thinks I'm teasing more than I'm warning. "Thank you," she says. "We'll pick you up." "Oh, did you hear? Our building's management changed hands. Andrew says that new company is very efficient." I look at the white envelope on my counter. "I noticed," I say. "Yeah, well," she says, and her voice does a little dance, the one it does when she doesn't want to talk about money in front of her mother. "Progress is complicated, but I really want to see you Friday. Promise?" "I promise," I say. "Bring your appetite." I might faint if I don't eat a sky shrimp. She groans. "Mom." Then softer. "I love you." "I love you too," I say to my daughter, who thinks she grew up and out but still turns toward my voice like a sunflower. I pour the tea. I sit with the notice. I read every line twice like it might turn honest if I give it a second chance. It won't. I tuck it into a manila folder labeled 5B Current, and I place that folder on top of a thicker one that lives in the back of my closet in a locked tin box that used to hold sugar. The thicker folder is labeled Astoria Court, Ownership. If I opened it, if I spread out the documents on this table, you would see the chain of title and the debt instruments, the assignments and the conversion agreements. The ink would spell my full name, Eleanor May Hart, exactly twice, nowhere near the front. It would be surrounded by a forest of initials belonging to other people who liked the sound of their own voices enough to print them on heavy paper. I don't open it. Not tonight. Tonight I do what I always do when the world tries to pick my pockets with a smile. I wash an apple. I drink my tea. I listen to the rain like it's trying to remember a story. I didn't plan to buy a building. To say I planned any of this would be to lie to you, and I won't start our time together like that. I was a school secretary for most of my working life, and before that a cleaner. I kept places going. Classrooms, offices, bathrooms, homes. I made lists and balanced calendars and fixed the thing that broke without an announcement. When my husband died, the silence inside our house was so big I could hear the little clicks of my own bones. Lena was 27 by then, busy trying on different versions of herself and forgetting where she put the one that fit. I sold the house we couldn't afford without him and moved into a small apartment over a bakery in the Central District where the morning bread was a sermon. You can learn almost anything in a library if you read with your eyes open. You can learn how cities work, who owns the wind, where the money sleeps. 2008 came and went, and a lot of important men fell apart in public, and a lot of important buildings began to wear for sale, like a second skin. I started reading about notes and liens. It felt like learning a secret language I already knew by heart. People treat ownership like it lives on one floor, the one with the doorman. It doesn't. It lives in a tangle of stairwells. A thing can belong to you without ever being seen with you. I didn't get rich. That's a trick people like to sell each other over coffee. I got steady. Steady is a kind of wealth that doesn't make noise. I saved. I lived small. I bought a duplex out by Rainier Beach when nobody was looking, kept my tenants safe and warm, sold it at the right time, slid the profit into a quiet trust that was only my name twice, and a lot of other names on purpose. When Astoria Court, the brick lady I live in, went into distress after the last tech craze slapped the market awake and then sat on it, I bought the note. Then the note became a throat, and I fed it until it turned into a deed. People will tell you that's shark behavior. Sharks circle and bite. I'm more of a tide. I wait. I come back. The day the deed slid across my kitchen table like a seal in a museum, I looked at it and thought, we do hard things for a purpose, or else they harden us. I didn't buy Astoria Court to flip it. The building is a good body. It needed a steady hand, new pipes, a roof that didn't perform water tricks in November. It needed a heart that could hear tenants say, my grandmother died here, and not turn that into a sales pitch. So I set it inside a structure called Rain City Affordable Trust, which is the kind of organization people build when they know what greed can do to a neighborhood, but also know what taxes can do to a widow. I made myself a quiet member, and I hired a management company I'd worked with before. They were competent and kind. For 6 years, it worked. Then, as these things go, competence got bought. The management company sold to a bigger one called North Star Residential, and North Star signed a portfolio agreement with Vail Urban Partners out of Bellevue, the sort of firm that calls buildings assets and people legacy drag if they slow down the spreadsheet. The bright envelope is step 1. Step 2 is a meeting in a fluorescent-lit office with a plastic plant and a woman who wears heels like armor. She's waiting for me when I ring the buzzer downstairs, her hair severe and perfect. Ms. Hart, she says, looking at me as if the dollar value of my cardigan could be known. That's me, I say. I'm Kara, she says, the way some people say, Captain. Come in. Her office looks like it was ordered in one box. You could pick it up and move it to Phoenix and no one would notice the difference. There's a framed poster that says alignment over a photograph of rocks stacked in a creek. I sit. We sent a notice, she says, a touch impatient already, like I've made an appointment to argue with a weather report. I received it. Good, she says, a note of relief as if I might otherwise call 911. We're beginning a large-scale upgrade to the building. The scope is significant, the cost is substantial. We understand it's inconvenient for you, but after the work is complete, you'll have the opportunity to apply for a new lease at a modern market rate. Would the new rent be double or triple? I ask, cheerful. Or only 1.5 times as much? She laughs politely, which is to say not at all. I can't discuss future pricing, but we do have a relocation coordinator who can assist you in finding alternate housing that suits your needs. What needs are those? I ask. She glances at my cotton skirt, my shoes you can run in, my purse that once belonged to a set of hands that did not have time to be careful. Access, she says. Simplicity. We have several partnerships with senior-friendly communities. I'm 64, I say. She adjusts a piece of paper that didn't need adjusting. Our relocation package can include modest compensation if you commit to a move-out date within 30 days. Many residents find that helpful for deposits on new places. How modest is modest? I ask. She leans back. $2,000 if you sign today. I let that float between us until the fluorescent lights can see themselves in it. Kara, I say kindly, you could hand me a check with 6 zeros on it, and I wouldn't sell my place at this table to the kind of person who thinks I need his chair to know where to sit. Her smile tightens. We're doing this for safety. The wiring in this building is outdated. I had it replaced 3 years ago, I say. She blinks. She didn't know that. We'll be adding fire sprinklers. There already are sprinklers, Kara. On every floor. We'll be updating the elevator, which passed inspection last month. She doesn't like that I know my own building. She switches to the real song. Look, we're aligning the building with the neighborhood's evolving character. It's an incredible location. Your unit can command a much higher price after our renovations, and frankly, that's what this corridor demands. We're inviting residents to be part of a better future by moving on. There are programs, I say softly, are what people invent when they need to feel better about decisions that make other people sleep in cars. She hardens. We'll proceed as planned. If you choose to cooperate, we can be flexible. If you choose otherwise, we will be punctual. I pick up my purse. Punctual is elegant, I say. I'll see you at your next deadline. She looks past me at the door like she already forgot the shape of my face. On my way back upstairs, the elevator coughs once and carries me like a grandmother carries her favorite pie, slowly, with quiet pride. In the hall, Alma is chalking a hopscotch on the black and white tile. She looks up with the solemn gaze little kids keep in a jar and only open for people who don't step on drawings. Ms. Ellie, she says, my dad says we have to move. He told you that, did he? I sit on the floor next to her because I don't believe in talking to children from a height. He said maybe we'll go where my aunt lives. But my aunt's house doesn't have pigeons. She points toward the window where the ledge is a theater. I feed them bread. Then we'll have to ask your aunt to build a ledge, I say. She doesn't have bricks, Alma says, deeply concerned. We'll find her some, I say, and Alma grins because in her world, certain people can simply find bricks. I want to be one of her certain people for as long as she lets me. I keep my routine because routine is a kind of armor. I get up at 5 because my bones say that's when the day is willing to take a meeting. I walk to the corner for coffee in a paper cup. I watch the ferry cut the gray water like a ritual. I go to my part-time job at the community center, helping folks navigate paperwork that feels like a foreign language, even when it isn't. On the bulletin board, there's a flyer for a tenants' rights clinic, and I take 3. I bring them home. I slip one under Miguel's door and one under Ms. Song's. I tuck the third into my own folder. The week hums. Someone from North Star forgets to clean the lobby. Packages go missing. A maintenance request for a broken radiator gets closed with a cheerful email that says, "Resolved," as if warmth can be typed. The laundry room starts eating quarters with a bigger appetite than usual. Little cuts, none of them bleed. All of them sting. Friday comes with a polite sky. Lena and Andrew pick me up at 6. Andrew is the kind of man who holds doors because he likes doors more than people. He's kind to me, in the way men are kind when they want to be promoted. He's a good-looking person in a good-looking jacket. He loves my daughter. I hold that like a stone in my pocket. "You look great, Mom," Lena says, and I do look like myself. A gray sweater, a dark skirt, a pair of black flats I can stand in forever if I have to. The Sky Mercer is a needle with a view. Everyone looks expensive in rooms that float above everything that matters. Trays of delicate food pass by like ideas. People stand in little circles with their badges on, saying sentences that sound like weather maps. The music is an appliance. I can smell lemon and money. "There's Grayson," Andrew says, nodding toward a man with the kind of chin that thinks it didn't have to wait its turn in line. "I'll introduce you both." Grayson is with Gavel Urban Partners. He shakes my hand and looks into my eyes in a way that says, "I will assess your value and I will not apologize for doing so." "Pleasure," he says, the way trees say shade. "Likewise," I say, because I can be polite. He moves on before my pulse can stand up. "Grayson's brilliant," Andrew says. "The firm's just acquired a portfolio of undervalued assets that are going to be transformative." "The kind of assets that used to be homes for people like me?" I ask. Andrew blushes because he's not a villain. He's a boy who learned math before he learned names. It's more complicated than that. Grayson takes the microphone. He's practiced the expression that says, "I'm surprised to find myself the center of attention again." He talks about cities like they're puzzle boxes only certain hands can open. He uses words like unlocking, repositioning, and unlocking again, because the key is usually the part people like to hear themselves hold. He says something about legacy tenants, the kind of people who remember when the corner laundromat still sold bubblegum, and the crowd laughs, not unkindly, the way you laugh when you haven't been taught how to do anything else. "Tonight," he says, "we celebrate opportunity." It takes courage to bring an old building into its highest and best use. I take a shrimp from a tray because I promised my daughter. It tastes like a small apology. A colleague of Andrew's drifts over and boasts to him about a tough cookie holdout in one of their properties. "She's in like 5-something, he says. "Immediate neighbors are gone, but she won't budge. We'll squeeze her with the boiler shutdowns next week and she'll take the buyout." I put a number on the table that would buy 6 months at a Motel 6. He's proud like a child who stacked coins. "What building?" I ask, sweet as rain. He glances at my sweater like sweaters have clearance levels. "Astoria Court," he says, the way some men whisper another man's wife's name, half a dare, half a prayer. I look at Andrew and he reads it in my face the second before his own face freezes. He knows where I live. He knows the apartment number. You can watch someone search for a rope while noticing he's holding a knife. "It's complicated," he says to me under his breath. "The word for that," I say, "is convenient." I do not make a scene. I do not take the microphone. I finish my shrimp. I kiss my daughter's cheek. I leave. Grayson's voice floats after me, promises and forecasts and charts. Elevator dings, ground floor, regular air. I walk home through a city that sometimes looks like it was built by cranes for cranes. People line up for ice cream, and for a moment I'm jealous of the kind of person who can think about ice cream while their house is on fire. The next morning, North Star posts a notice about temporary water shutoffs for improvement. The time window is vague enough to cover 3 seasons. Ms. Song knocks on my door. She holds the notice like she used to hold her grandchildren. "What will we do?" she asks. "We'll fill pots," I say, "and call the city if they push their luck." "You know what to do," she says, mysterious as a child's compliment. I do. I create a tenant's contact list and slide it under doors with a pen clipped to every other one. People text. People knock. People put their names next to available for childcare swap and rides to grocery store and good at writing letters. We meet in the basement by the washer that chews quarters, and we sit on mismatched chairs around the table that is only steady on 3 legs. I bring cookies. Miguel brings coffee. Ms. Song brings oranges cut into perfect half moons. I tell them what I know. I speak quietly because quiet lays down a road for people to walk their fear on. They will try to make you feel alone, I say. They will tell you the building is unsafe and that you're selfish for wanting to stay in a place that would kill you in a fire. They will start to break things accidentally. They will try to get you to sign things by sounding friendly. Do not sign anything. If you need time, take time. If you need anyone, call me. Why do you know this? Asks Daniel from 3A, a student who is very serious about taking care of his one houseplant and not very serious about his hair. I used to clean offices, I say. I heard everything. We laugh like we're allowed to. The laughter shocks me with its health. Monday, someone from North Star enters 2C without permission and photographs the apartment. The tenant, an older man with a veteran cap, calls me, his voice shaking. He says he felt like he was breaking the law inside his own home. I write a letter. I print 5 copies. I deliver one to North Star, one to the city's rental inspection office, one to the tenant's clinic, one to the building bulletin board, and one to the tin box that once held sugar. I do this because paper makes fog into a floor. The week after, I find my name in an email from North Star that wasn't meant for me. It arrived because someone typed L and clicked the first address on the list. I wonder who Elijah Hart is and whether he is tickled to receive invitations to meetings he does not understand. The email says 5B is coordinating resistance as if I'm a warlord. I wish I had a warlord's coat. I would wear it to the grocery store and see who holds the door. Then the city posts notice of a public hearing at City Hall regarding a request from Gavel Urban Partners to approve a zoning variance and a historic tax abatement for the Astoria court upgrade. The language is bland, like food cooked by a machine. The meaning is alive. They want to turn us into photographs in a brochure, and they would like the city to help pay for it. I mark the date and time. I call an old friend named Harriet. She ran an administrative courtroom for 25 years and looked people in the eye until they told the truth by accident. Now she teaches at the community college and grows rosemary on her porch like it's a job. I'll come, she says. I like a good hearing. The week before the hearing, the elevators go out for maintenance. Then the fire alarms chirp at 2 a.m. for practice. Then the lobby locks fail one afternoon, and Ms. Song gets stuck outside for an hour in the rain, while the property manager's voicemail says the office is closed for a wellness day. Kara meets me in the lobby by accident when I'm returning with a bag of groceries. Her heels click, like punctuation. "Ms. Hart," she says, "we need to schedule your final inspection." "I haven't scheduled my move-out," I say. "Then we'll schedule a pre-move inspection," she says, "to expedite the process when you do the sensible thing." "Oh," I say, pleasant as tea. "I am sensible. That's why I don't sign anything I don't need to sign." "We can always pursue other channels," she says lightly. "I know," I say, because I'm not afraid of sentences that use the word always like a weapon. She looks at my bag. "You know, there's a grocery delivery program for seniors on limited incomes. If you—" "Kara," I say without heat, "save the charity for your mirror. For the record, I am not mean to her. I have been many things in my life. Mean has never paid." Friday comes with its damp handshake, and I wear my good coat to City Hall. The hearing room is long and wood-paneled, a church for people who think numbers argue better than people do. A camera's little red light glows like a conscience. Gavel Urban Partners brought slides and a lawyer with a voice like velvet, and they say things like heritage and preservation and community benefit, as if you can fit those words next to displacement and still call it a sentence. Grayson is there. He wears a suit that thinks it is a better man than he is. He's very good at what he does. He's excellent at looking good while he's doing it. The chair opens the time for public comment. Tenants speak. Miguel talks about Alma's pigeons, and you would be surprised how hard it is to move a person once he has made himself a ledge. Ms. Song tells the room that this is the first building she lived in after she buried her husband, and that the light in her kitchen saved her life because it looked like a promise. Daniel reads a poem, because of course he does. A nurse from 1D explains how many stairs she can climb after a 12-hour shift and how an elevator that needs a new brain is not a reason to throw people away. Grayson listens like he's taking notes on a song he will never sing. I am the last to approach the microphone. I have waited to be last the way some people train to run marathons. Patience is a discipline. I look out at the rows of faces, tired ones, lined ones, ones that believe they'll know no peace and are wrong about that. I look at Kara. She studies her phone. I look at Lena and Andrew sitting in the back. Andrew looks like a person in a car he can't steer. Good afternoon, I say. My name is Eleanor Hart, and I live in apartment 5B of Astoria Court. Thank you for your time today. I brought a few documents for the record. The clerk makes a space for my manila folder. I appreciate the developer's presentation on preservation, I say calmly, but there's a missing word, and it's covenant. When Rain City Affordable Trust purchased the distress note for Astoria Court 9 years ago, we executed a set of protective covenants. I brought copies. They include a clause restricting displacement for the purpose of luxury upgrade when the building is above code, and when tax advantages are sought on the basis of historic character. Grayson turns his head a 1/4 inch. That is a lot of motion for a man whose movements are usually measured in eyebrow millimeters. I continue. Here's our last fire inspection report. Fully passed. Here's the elevator inspection. Here's proof of the new wiring. Here's a cost analysis from our contractor showing that the majority of proposed changes are cosmetic and a rebranding exercise, not safety upgrades. The chair leans forward like a person at a campfire. Ms. Hart, what's your role with the trust? It's complicated, I say, and I almost smile because Andrew looks down at his shoes right then, a man caught cheating on a word. I don't smile. I serve on the board. Grayson's lawyer stands, polite as a cat. With respect, the trust executed a joint operating agreement last year with Vail Urban Partners, giving Vail certain rights to propose modernization strategies and, I say gently, the trust retained a golden vote on displacement, demolition, and meaningful rent increases beyond cost of carry adjustments. That golden vote has not been waived, delegated, or sold. That golden vote was used last week to deny Vail's plan. Here is the resolution. The room makes the lowest possible sound a room can make. It's not a gasp. It's more like a shift. People move slightly because they feel the floor turn from water back into wood. I want to be very clear, I say. No one will be forced out of Astoria Court to make room for a brochure. We will fix what needs fixing. We will repaint and patch and tuck point. We will make the boiler purr like a cat that remembers when it was a lion. We will keep rent steady within the boundaries of the law and the covenants. We will not turn homes into hotel rooms. Grayson takes the microphone with a smile that aims to explain me. While we appreciate Ms. Hart's sentimental attachment to the property, he says, Vail has committed significant capital to this project. We have obligations to our investors. Our plan delivers citywide benefits in the form of, Mr. Vail, I say, have you read the covenants? My counsel, has counsel read the covenants? His lawyer blinks. We are familiar with the general parameters. Then you know Section 7.2 gives Rain City Affordable Trust a unilateral veto on displacement for cosmetic modernization. You also know Section 7.3 allows the trust to reclaim management rights from an operator who engages in bad faith pressure tactics designed to induce vacancy. I take a breath. Including water shutoffs, elevator outages unrelated to real maintenance, and unannounced entries. Here are affidavits from residents. Here are timestamps. Here are the service tickets marked resolved on days no one came. Kara looks at her lap. I know that posture. I have held it myself after saying something on the phone I wouldn't say in a church. The chair looks at the documents. The lawyer asks to review them. The camera's red light stares and stares. The chair speaks. Mr. Vail, given the testimonies and documents provided, I recommend you withdraw your request for tax abatement and zoning variance today and consult with your partner regarding the covenants in question. We cannot grant an abatement premised on displacement prohibited by the building's ownership structure. Grayson is too good at this to argue. He smiles, smooth as a pond on a cold morning. "We appreciate the guidance," he says, which is rich. Public comment closes. The meeting moves on to a man who wants to cut down a tree because it looks at him funny. People file out. On the steps, the tenants stand in a loose cluster like a flock coming to a halt. Several of them look at me in a new way, the way you look at a stranger who might be family. It makes me want to sit down. I feel the years in my knees all at once. Miguel steps close. He isn't smiling. He looks relieved, and relief looks so much like sorrow when it first takes off its coat that you can get confused. "You didn't tell us," he says. "I didn't know if I'd need to," I say. "You're the owner," he says, half question, half accusation from a person who hates to accuse. "Part of a thing that owns the building," I say. "A big part." But not the only part. Ms. Song is more direct. "Did you keep this from us on purpose?" "I did," I say, "because there is no use lying to people whose ceilings you've slept under. I wanted to see what they would do when they thought we were all small. I wanted to see how far they would push. I wanted to collect evidence. And yes, I wanted to teach them a lesson I have had to learn myself a dozen times. You cannot measure a person by what you think you can take from them. That's dramatic," Daniel says, always playing the role he was born for, and then he grins because he loves a line. "It's also true," I say. Lena and Andrew come down the steps. The sky opens a little like it might show us the blue it hides between meetings. Lena's eyes are liquid. She touches my arm with fingers like she's testing whether I'm made of what she thought I was made of last night. "Mom," she says, "why didn't you tell me?" "Because you loved me already," I say, "and I didn't want you to love me differently." She shakes her head like that sentence walked into her ears carrying furniture she didn't order. "I could have helped you," she says. "You did," I say, "by bringing me to that party." "Did you know he worked for Vale?" I ask, tilting my head toward Andrew. Lena looks at him. He looks at his shoes again. "I knew," she says finally. "I told myself it was okay because work is work, and we can't be responsible for everything our jobs do. That was small of me." "It was human," I say. Andrew steps forward. He has a nice voice when he drops it into its honest register. "Ms. Hart," he says, "I didn't know about the covenants. I should have. I was sloppy. I'm sorry." "You were busy," I say. Busy is the word people use when they've sold their curiosity. He flinches, but then he nods. I like him for that nod. A lot of people would argue with it to hear the sound of their own defense. "Grayson thinks he can fight this," Andrew says. "He thinks he can outmaneuver the trust on a technicality." "He might," I say, "but I also might be a better chess player than he is." "I don't want to be on his team," Andrew says, surprising himself in public, and my daughter looks at him in a way that softens something around her mouth. I don't like how my stomach felt in there. "Then you don't have to be," I say, as if it is that simple. Sometimes it is. We eat pho 2 blocks from City Hall, me and Lena and Andrew and Miguel and Ms. Song and Daniel, because after a battle, the body asks for soup. Alma draws pigeons on the back of a coloring page. The table is sticky. The broth is a blessing. We talk about what comes next. I tell them the truth. This is not magic. This is paper and law and patience. There will be more letters, nicer ones, and then meaner ones. There will be promises. I look at Andrew. There will be someone who calls me sentimental because I like the way morning light happens in kitchens. "You are sentimental," Lena says, half exasperated, half proud. "You cry at commercials." "I do," I say, "but not when they're for luxury condos." Everyone laughs. The laughter feels like something the room grew itself. That night, I sit at my table and make 3 lists: things to fix, people to hire, and conversations to have. Under the last one, I write Grayson's name and circle it. I also write Kara. I write North Star replacement and underline it. Because there is nothing more dangerous to a home than an incompetent person in a uniform. Monday, I call a special meeting of the trust board. We meet in a room with a too long table and 2 bright lights and the kind of coffee that tastes like old burned leaves. Prisha, our counsel, is careful and brilliant. Eugene, who reads every contract like it might try to bite him, shows up with his pen loaded. I explain what has happened. I pass around documentation from the tenants. I pass around the elevator inspection that says what it says. I pass around Kara's emails with their breezy cruelty and their timestamps. We trigger 7.3, Eugene says, without drama. We remove North Star for cause and appoint interim management this afternoon. We send Vale a letter demanding they immediately cease any actions related to vacancy inducement. Do we have an interim? Prisha asks. Yes, I say. Park and Son. They manage the little building I used to own by the lake. They are very boring, which is exactly what I like in a property manager. Boring is peace, Eugene says. It is, I say. We vote. The motion passes unanimously. I sign a stack of papers with a pen that has no idea it is what keeps a building upright. At 2 o'clock, Park and Son arrives at Astoria Court with a toolbox and a clipboard. By 3, there is a man on a ladder fixing the lobby lock. He whistles softly while he works. By 4, a woman with strong hands replaces the sign that says office with a blank rectangle, because we don't need the kind of office that won't look us in the eye. By 5, there is heat in 2 degrees Celsius. Kara appears at 5:30, full of outrage that smells like a perfume counter. She finds me in the lobby because where else would I be? You can't just replace us, she says. We have a contract. We did replace you, I say. The contract had a clause for people who behave like you. She flushes. You lied at the hearing. No, I say. I told the entire truth. You just didn't expect the kind of person I am to have the kind of power you understand. You think you're better than me, she says. No, I say, and I mean it. I just think I'm better at my job. The lock clicks. The new manager, Mr. Park's daughter, Grace, holds out a box of things that used to live on Kara's desk. A stapler, a coffee mug that says hustle, a plant that needs water. We'll mail the rest, she says politely. Kara takes the box. She walks out. She does not look back. I hope she is better somewhere else. I am not foolish. Some people cannot be better yet, but I don't have to be there when they practice. The next week is work, real work, the kind that leaves your feet a little bigger at day's end. We patch the roof where the pigeons found a door. We service the elevator so it doesn't cough anymore, just hums like a man who remembered the words. We deep clean the carpets and the place smells like lemons and possibility. The radiators get bled. The lobby lights warm up from interrogation to welcome. We paint the hallway a color that looks like a cloud at 4 p.m. We fix the laundry machines and put up a laminated sign that says, "Call Grace if you lose quarters," and then Grace actually answers. We publish a number you can text that does not go into a void. We start a tenants council that meets once a month with a real agenda and a real tablecloth someone donated that used to see birthdays. Vale Urban Partners sends letters through their lawyer. The letters are clever, which is not the same as true. They suggest that our covenants violate some new ordinance. They imply that our interpretation is old-fashioned. They ask for a meeting so they can explain to me why their needs should be my needs if I were only sufficiently educated. Prisha drafts replies so clean you could eat off them. Then Grayson calls me. He doesn't ask for a meeting. He says he's in the neighborhood and could he stop by. I tell him yes because there is a kind of enemy you must serve tea to if you want to see how he holds a cup. He arrives in a coat that looks like it was designed by a person who designs cars. He is polite. He looks at the crown moldings like they are trying too hard. We sit in my small living room with my small table and my small teapot, and he cannot hide his surprise at the way the light is actually beautiful here. I didn't expect this, he says. What did you expect? I ask. I don't know, he says, and I believe him. Less. Less what? Less of everything, he says. Less space. Less quiet. Less care. Care is cheap, I say. People pretend it's expensive because they're bad at it. He smiles. You're very quotable. I'm tired of quotes, I say. What do you need, Mr. Vale? He takes a breath, drops the act. Shows me for a second the boy he used to be before someone taught him how to wear ambition like a suit. We misread the covenants, he says. We thought the golden vote expired after a certain capital expenditure threshold. It doesn't. That's on me. I signed off on a summary instead of reading the whole thing. I've done that with recipes, I say. Still eatable, usually. Not always enjoyable. Investors expect performance, he says. If we can't reposition this asset, our timeline suffers. Then you shouldn't have promised a timeline you didn't own yet, I say, and he winces because he hears it like a line someone will put on a mug. What you could do, I say, is partner with us. Partner how? He asks carefully. Put your money where it actually helps, I say. Join our rehab budget at cost. No displacements. Share the story differently. You preserved a historic building and kept people in their homes. Claim that on your brochures and on your conscience, that won't produce the yield we projected, he says automatically. I don't care about your projections, I say, not unkindly. I care about Alma's pigeons and Ms. Song's light and the way this hallway feels safe at night to a nurse with sore feet. Yields are not my religion. He looks at his hands. Would you have done this if you weren't an owner? Absolutely, I say. I've stood at microphones for people whose keys didn't open rooms like this. And would you have been heard? He asks. Eventually, I say. Justice is a dam. It looks like it's holding, then, water. He finishes his tea. He stands. He looks around like he has something to say about windows. He doesn't say it. Thank you, he says instead, which is not what I expected. For the tea? I ask. For not humiliating me, he says. I'm too old for sport, I say. I prefer results. He leaves without harm. Later that week, Vale withdraws their letters that growl. They send new ones that purr. They propose a compromise. They fund our boiler, tuck-pointing, electrical. In return, we add 2 higher rent units when the top floor studios become legal 1-bedrooms due to an egress change we'd planned anyway. We run the math. The Tenants' Council votes to support it. We sign an amended agreement. Grayson is not the devil. He's a person who learned the wrong lesson early and is now learning something else. Andrew shows up with a box of his own office things. I quit, he says on my doormat, his eyes big and a little scared and a little thrilled. I couldn't go into that building and look at those slides and hear those words and then come to your house and eat soup like a decent person. I'll find something else, a firm that believes in the words it puts on its letterhead. Or I'll go in-house somewhere that makes something you can touch. Touch is an underrated value, I say. Lena stands behind him and wraps her arms around his middle, like he's a post she's decided not to let wash away. I told him we'll be okay, she says. I told him if money needs to be small for a while, we can be big in other ways. Now you're getting parental, I say, proud enough to still my own breath. He asks me for a favor. Would you look over my offers when they come? Make sure I'm not stepping into a different river with the same water? I can do that, I say. The building breathes. You can feel it when places do that, when the tightness lets go. The lobby smells like Murphy oil soap. The stairwell echoes laughter again, not just footsteps. Alma holds a little plastic hard hat and surveys the tuck-pointing crew like a foreman. Ms. Song brings tea to the electricians. Daniel hangs a houseplant from the landing and it looks like it always wanted to be there. The old elevator car gets a small plaque from Park & Son that simply says, "We fix this with love." In the middle of all this, a letter arrives addressed to owner instead of resident. It is not the kind of letter that threatens or begs. It is a thank you from a woman named Connie in 4F, who writes in small, neat sentences about how she sleeps now, really sleeps, because she knows nothing bad will be done to her as a business strategy. She tucks a recipe for banana bread in the envelope, as if secrets should be shared in both directions. I put it in the tin box on top of the deed. A week later, a man stops me on the sidewalk. He drives the 49 bus, and we've said hello to each other for years when our mornings cross. He's got a face that looks carved out of kindness, the sort you see in winter on people who know how to fix chains on tires without complaining. "Ms. Ellie," he says, "I heard what you did." "You hear things on that bus," I say. I do, he says, and I want to tell you something selfish. Thank you. It's easier to drive a city where people aren't scared. That is the best kind of selfish, I say. He laughs, then gets serious. I've been doing this 23 years. The people who look the softest are always the ones who keep the hard things going. Then look for soft, I say. That's where the work is. He tips his cap like a man in a movie and continues his route. Spring leans in. The maples outside put out their little flags. The pigeons are idiots and also perfect. The building holds its people like a hand that knows exactly how much pressure to apply. Rent checks come in, work orders get answered. Some apartments turn over because life moves and no place is a museum. When they do, we clean and paint and rent them for fair numbers that don't shame us. Vale sends their check for the boiler like they promised. Grayson delivers it himself because I think he knows who he wants to be when he's old and surprising himself. And maybe it's not the man at the microphone. We start a scholarship with a little slice of my trust distribution. It's for anyone in the building who wants to go to a class. ESL, GED, woodworking, coding, cooking, nursing. No application other than, what do you want to learn and why? The Tenants Council votes on it, so it's not my decision. Alma applies for ballet in block letters and gets a discounted pair of pink shoes because the woman at the dance store believes in covenants of her own. A year after the hearing, we host a building picnic on the roof. Someone brings a grill the size of a car trunk, and someone else brings a card table, and someone else brings their grandmother's potato salad with the secret that is sugar. Lena and Andrew come, and Andrew arrives with a stack of flyers from a nonprofit housing trust that has his name now in the smallest font on a page you want to read. He looks lighter. He looks like a person using his hands. He and Miguel argue cheerfully about soccer. Ms. Song sits in the corner and watches everything with the serenity of a lighthouse. Daniel reads us a poem that does not apologize for being a poem. The elevator hums like a friend who knows all your stories and still laughs at the right parts. Grayson appears at the door holding a chocolate cake from a place that makes cake taste like the idea of cake before you knew cake existed. He looks shy. Good. He should get used to it. We make room for him. You make room for people who change, even if they are late. When the sun goes down, the city lights itself, one window after another, like a constellation that forgot it is a story we made up together. People talk about Seattle like it started 5 minutes ago. It didn't. There are bones in these hills. There are promises. There is a way to be with each other that doesn't require a slogan. Later, after the folding chairs are folded and the last paper plate has been persuaded not to fly, I take the stairs down instead of the elevator because sometimes you should feel your calves and remember what it is to climb. I let myself into my apartment. I make tea. The little kitchen holds the day like a palm. Lena knocks and comes in without waiting because that's what children do when there is no longer anything between you and them that can be broken by a door. "Mom," she says. "Sit." I sit. She sits across from me and doesn't blink for a long time, which is her way of being sensible and brave and not losing her nerve. "I'm sorry," she says. "For what?" I ask, half knowing. "For thinking small," she says. "For thinking you were small. For acting like you needed protection from things you built with your own hands." She laughs a little. "When I was a teenager, you were the sun, and then I grew up and made you into a flashlight in a drawer. That was cruel." "It was convenient," I say, and we both smile because the word is our aunt who tells the truth at family dinners. "You were always allowed to leave me. You were never allowed to leave yourself. I didn't," she says, "but I almost did." I don't want that life. The glass boxes, the words people use to make theft sound noble. I want something I can look at without editing. "Then look here," I say. "Start at your front door." She nods. "I want to have a wedding in the courtyard," she says, surprising me and not surprising me. Small. People we actually know. Chicken from the place Andrew likes. String lights. A dress that doesn't get caught in stair rails. Done, I say. And it is done the way things are done, when two hands agree to hold. She reaches across the table and takes my hand. "I didn't know you owned this building," she says, still occasionally astonished. I turn my hand and hold hers back the way you hold something that's been cold for a long time. I don't, I say. We do. She looks confused for a moment. Then she sees the tenants' council meeting minutes on my refrigerator with the magnets shaped like fruit. She sees the Park and Sun number printed in type anyone can read. She sees a laminated equity plan for the scholarship and a flyer advertising community yoga, pay what you can, and a drawing Alma gave me of pigeons looking like they own the sky. She looks at me again. We do, she says, and that we is the best word of the night. A week later, I take the tin box from the closet and open it. I've never been a person who needed a lot of ritual, but this one feels earned. The deed is there, the covenants, the amendments, the checks like little rectangles that smell like trees. I tuck the banana bread recipe on top. I add a photograph of the roof picnic. I add the tenant's contact list because that document holds more wealth than anything a notary has ever stamped. I lock the box and slide it back. There are some treasures you don't hide because you're afraid they'll be stolen. You hide them because they're too heavy to carry around. North Star sends a final invoice for services rendered. Grace reviews it and circles the line items that are fantasies. We pay the amount that is true. We put the receipt in the folder. We move on with our lives. Miguel gets a promotion at the restaurant where he's been a line cook forever, the kind of promotion that comes with a steadier schedule and cheeks that don't sag at the end of a day. He and Alma bring me leftover empanadas on Tuesdays. They taste like someone took care. Ms. Song starts teaching a Tai Chi class in the mornings in the courtyard. Andrew takes a job with Rain City Affordable Trust, on the side of the table where we sit. And for once, he comes home humming. And the humming is not the elevator's work, it's his. Daniel publishes a poem in a small magazine no one has heard of, and then everyone does. Grayson speaks at a conference about patient returns, and when he says legacy, now he means it in a way that doesn't make the room dry. Sometimes, in the late afternoon, I sit on the stoop and watch the street go by. People still move. They always will. That's not failure. That's weather. But the building holds the kind of people who hold other people's door open and then don't tell anyone about it. The pigeons fight over a crust. Alma scolds them with dignity. The maple trees blink, leaf by leaf. The sky does whatever the sky does in a city that loves gray on purpose. If you want a moral, I don't have one. Morals belong in books that believe too much in endings. What I have is a practice. Make less noise than your care. Learn the paper. If someone says market, ask for a map. If someone says progress, ask for whom. If someone hands you a notice taped to your door, put on the kettle. If you own something, own it like a steward, not a king. If you came here for the reveal, that moment when the granddaughter of a janitor tells a man in a perfect suit that this whole place belongs to her, I hope you found something else on your way. A hallway where the light looks like a promise. A laundry room where people return quarters they could pocket. A picnic where someone who used to be your landlord brings cake and says thank you without being asked. There's a lot I didn't tell you. Some of it is boring. Boring is important. Boring is the part of safety that gets the least applause. The elevator inspection schedule, the boiler service contract, the way you keep track of keys so no one wonders who can open their door. These are not the kinds of things people toast at sky parties, but they are the things that keep a person sitting with a bowl of soup in a room that holds them like a word you meant on the first try. Every now and then, someone new moves in. They come with boxes and tired eyes, and one lamp that has always been a little crooked. Grace hands them a welcome packet that has useful phone numbers and a list of neighbors who know their names already. The elevator hums. The hallway smells like Murphy oil soap and somebody's dinner. They put their key in the lock and it turns. That sound, the little clunk and click of a lock doing its job, is one of the sweetest I know. It means, here is a place where you can put your body down. It means, you are one of us. I don't need my name on the building. Names on buildings are for people who want to be remembered by strangers. I want to be remembered by the pigeons, if I'm remembered at all. I want to live in the kind of city where a bus driver thinks his route is safer because someone in a cardigan knew how to read a contract. I want my daughter to have a wedding in a courtyard where the string lights stay up after the party because people want to look at them on Tuesdays. I want to be there the first time Alma does a twirl that looks like it might take her off the roof and into the sky. A year after the picnic, the city sends a letter to Rain City Affordable Trust thanking us for our preservation work. It is a small letter. It arrives in a plain envelope. It does not smell like money. I keep it anyway because it makes me laugh. The city doesn't know what we preserved. It wasn't just bricks. It wasn't just molding and tile. We preserved the idea that the person who signs papers and the person who sweeps hallways could drink tea at the same table and not have to pretend they aren't related. We preserved the act of saying no without hating anyone. We preserved the right to feed pigeons in peace. If you've listened this long, you already know the ending isn't an ending. You know it's a daily thing, like sweeping, like stirring a pot, like checking a lock. That's all right. Grand things make good speeches. Quiet things make good lives. I go downstairs. I sit on the stoop. Andrew and Lena are walking back from the corner with bags of flowers because they decided a wedding in a courtyard doesn't need permission from anyone except the people who love each other and the person who knows how to untangle the string lights. Miguel waves from across the street where he's teaching Alma how to check both ways before crossing because some lessons belong in both of our heads at once. "Ms. Ellie," Alma yells, "watch me." I watch. She jumps the last 3 steps like she knows gravity is a suggestion. She lands solid. She grins. The pigeons flap as if clapping. The maples lift their leaves as if to show the sky to itself. Someone upstairs plays a trumpet softly. Not sad at all now, just true. And that's the story. We kept what mattered. We changed who needed changing. We learned that money can be a tool and not a weapon. We learned that buildings are bodies, and you don't cut into them unless you're planning to heal them. We learned that some power sits quietly at a kitchen table until it stands up and says its name. If you liked spending time here, if you felt at home for a while, even if this isn't your street, I'm glad. There are more stories. There always are. Some of them take place in buildings. Most of them take place in people. You know where to find them now. You know where to knock.